So markets liked the jobs data and they went straight up into the open and then kind of chopped a little bit higher during the session. Nothing crazy, and you can see momentum fading here. But let's take a quick look at the markets as we head into the weekend. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to fear and greed, down to a 53 from a 55. Again, despite markets going higher, this fear and greed index continues to go lower. Interesting to see it do that. You can see still extreme greed on momentum, strength continuing to trend down, breadth continuing to go lower. Put call ratio, slight bounce into today's session. Volatility cratering as you would expect after we got that unemployment data, and it turned out to be pretty good. And then you got bonds here still in fear for both of those. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see non-farm payrolls, good there. Private payrolls, also good. Unemployment rate did step up, but that was not enough to affect markets in line with expectations. Earnings going up, GDP for the Eurozone in line, so everything was good here. 1-year inflation a little bit higher than expectations, but not too bad. And then you got consumer sentiment, also good. Overall, good enough to keep markets happy. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps here, you can see that big push early in the session, but we gave most of that back here on the S&Ps, holding this trend line here, continuing to be an interesting trend. We added that in yesterday, saw it kind of pushed up to that level here, chopped on it through the mid-November, and now we're kind of hovering in between these lines here, and that continues to be interesting. Maybe if we get a little bit of a break below there, retest continuation lower, that could be interesting, but for now it seems to be holding up, selling just a smidgen after hours. It did stay positive on the day, just barely at 0.19, but momentum flattening out. Wasn't really enough to keep the S&Ps moving higher the way that it had been, and the NASDAQ definitely outperformed today. So right now, support in here, 607.70 for the Monday session. If it breaks down, your 55 is the next level, 606.45. Moving over to the NASDAQ charts here, just like we saw on the intro, you can see big up candle, 0.89, engulfed all of the previous candle here, broke out from these highs early in the session on that first candle of the day, pushed up, consolidated into the mid to end session, but overall, strong candle, closed on the highs, held these levels. The NASDAQ continues to look good. Looking for that push up into this 533 area as your next area of resistance. Overall, looks strong, momentum bullish. It is overbought there at a 69.99. We'll call it a 70 flat, but overall, still looks very good and continues to play. And this trend structure here on the daily chart does look better than the S&Ps at this point. You can see multiple touches at this trend, continues to be the top of the pattern. That seems like where we're headed, 533 or so. So everything looks good and looks a little better here on the NASDAQ. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell had a nice day, up 0.36. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, but we gapped up. Held most of those gains off of the 238 level. That was what we were watching to see if that broke. Good news on the unemployment, gave us a nice gap up. Couldn't hold all of those gains, but we're still in the same trading range. And then looking at the Dow, ended up falling through the session. It was the only one negative on the day, 0.34. Looks like this is potentially going to break here. Does look like a topping pattern, double top, sell off from that level. You have the midpoint as the low from the 3 December candle. The low there was 446.61, and that's pretty much where we closed, 447.15, just about 50 cents up from there. And you can see after hours we're drifting towards it. If that breaks on the Monday, we're probably headed back down to here, that 441.43 level. Got VWAP right there as well, 21 just above it at 442.45. Momentum fading, RSI fading. This is probably going to break down here on the Monday. Moving over to the Mag 7, just wanted to highlight that we hit this trend and rejected from there slightly. So we've been watching this trend line for a while. Goes back many months, back down to the low here of basically the end of October. Marks some consolidation lows in here, marks a top before this breakdown there. Very close to it, ended up coming up a little bit short, and now we are right at it here on today's session. It was a good session, 1.88%. I think Tesla was probably most of that, but good session right into these levels of resistance. We'll see if it pushes through there, if we're going to get a little bit of a rejection from it. Overall, momentum very bullish, RSI super overbought, critical key resistance level. We'll see what happens. Moving over to Unity, just because we have been watching this one for a little bit. It's been on a massive run with just one bear candle since all the way back here on 18 November. Big push here, consolidation, pull back in time, big push. Now it seems like we might be pulling back in time. Your support is still 26.43. Tried to go a little higher, rejected, stayed slightly positive, but not much. It's also super overbought at a 75.54. Might be a time to either take some profits or wait for some consolidation. Stop for me, like I said, 26.43. We'll see how it plays out. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, Apple was down 0.08. We talked about how this looked like a topping pattern over the last 2 days. We got another down candle, momentum stepping down 2 in a row. This is probably going to roll here now. I would expect a pullback, at least in time, if not in price. Get a higher low setup continuation potentially. Still a very strong push. You would expect the higher low. And then looking at Microsoft, it did continue higher, but not with the same kind of momentum that we would have wanted to see. Positive 0.21 on the day. Still well above the level. Trading range wise, looking for 440.72 to hold, looking to push up to that 453.30 level. We're above all of these consolidation highs, so you should expect a continuation here. If it doesn't do it in one push, you would look for the higher low setup continuation up to those levels. At least that's what I would be looking for. We'll see if we get some structure out of this, but right now it's a big push, decent volume. The volume is fading a little bit on the rally, which is not what you would want to see. You would want to see volume increasing as this continues to go, but that's not what we're seeing, so maybe we get a little bit of a pullback, higher low setup continuation. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla up 5.34%, super bullish on the day. It's up even more after hours. You can see we are very close to all-time highs here on Tesla. Need to add a level right there. 414.50 is the all-time high, and that is what we're looking at now. You can see here we've clean broken out. We talked about once this trend broke, it was probably going to go. Sure enough, it has. Gap through that next level, continuation through this one, broke out, continuing to look good here up to that 414.50 area. Momentum bullish RSI, super overbought, but this is a straight up move. We've been talking about it for a while. It's been really aggressive and continues to go. So everything looks good there. And then NVIDIA selling off pretty aggressively on the day, 1.81% down. Talked about the doji candle after the big up move, got the gap down and sell. We're back below the 21. So now this is consolidation for me. You can see high, lower high. We've been watching this as a head and shoulders pattern, left shoulder, head, right shoulder in here. If this breaks below this zone in here, somewhere around 134, kind of the neckline, maybe a little lower, 132.60 maybe. Either way, we're rejecting off this level 144.42. Your next support 140.76. If this zone breaks, we get another test of the 55 at 136. We've already had the test, it held. You got the lower high setup, so you're looking for the retest. If that breaks from here, your next level is down in the 130s. And we've been talking about this for a while. NVIDIA just has not had the same kind of upward strength. And for me, this looks like it's going to sell some more. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples wicking that level, did continue higher like we thought it would, touch that level, rejected very powerfully. So now at this point, we're looking for the higher low setup, probably down here around 81.62. Should hold in that zone, momentum fading, RSI breaking down. So a little bit more bearish here on staples. And then looking at discretionaries, big up push, 2.1%, driven mostly by Tesla, super aggressive on the RSI at an 80.23. At this point, we're looking for the trend there. The trend for the Monday session will be at 234.62. You can see zooming way out on this structure. This is a very long-term trend line here. We'll look at it more on the weekend video, but very long-term trend. We'll see if that continues to be a magnet for markets and see what happens once we touch it. My guess is that we'll reject from there, but we're super close, and at this point, you would expect at least a touch. Moving over to Breadth. Breadth continues to crater here. 20-day Breadth well below this previous low now. So you got a high, higher high, and a low, lower low. So market's doing some weird things. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. See where it goes at this point. With that bigger breakdown, you could get all the way to the 36.60 area. You have the low back here from kind of mid-October as a potential bounce point. Did see a slight wick, not the same as what we saw yesterday, but still looks bearish. And then 50-day, also slightly lower low, still bearish momentum. RSI still bearish. You can see the structure is different between the two, with the low, higher low still, and the low, lower low. So we'll see which one wins. Right now, it seems like the 50-day is holding a little bit better as markets continue to stay relatively bullish. Moving over to the dollar, touched our level 105.5 as we expected that it would. Touch that level, caught a little bit of a bounce on the good unemployment data. We'll see what happens now. This is still a low, lower low, lower low with a high, lower high, expecting another either slightly lower high, or we haven't really made that true low yet. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. Overall, medium term is still bullish, but it is super extended, and I would expect a little bit more pullbacks. We'll see how it plays out. And then moving over to bonds. Bonds continue to look good, continuing to go higher just about every day. Once we've kind of established this base here, Bonds have continued to look good over the past month and a half or so, and they continue to do so. Still expecting this to push up into this 96.50 area in here. Same with J&K looking to push to that 97.69 area here. Moving over to volatility, vol cratered right to my level, 12.75, took out these previous lows, momentum back to bearish. See what happens now. This is going to be interesting. We've been in this zone for a long time, going back to mid-May all the way up until mid-July before we saw spikes. So maybe this is kind of a culmination point. Consolidation for another month and a half. We get that kind of Santa Claus rally. Then we start to see a resumption of some spikes in vol. But for now, it seems like volatility is kind of dead. Moving over to my accounts, I did really well on the day. I rolled out my IWM position. I let that expire and then rolled it out here to 239 for $1 credit, just at the money. This was a good position, played it well over the last couple days, made money there, continues to do well. And then looking at the Qs, rolled these up and out across the weekend here to the 16th, 522, 523 for $7 and $6 credit. So it's a big rollout. I'm not super comfortable with it. You can see they're sitting in a little bit of a profit, but it did allow these shares to run on the day, which they did do. Continued to push higher and look strong, so you have to play what you have. Did sell just a smidgen after hours, but we were above my max profit and I had to react to that. So everything looks good, being patient here. And now over the next 10 days, I have about 1.5% of protection. We'll see how markets do. My guess is we'll probably see 1.5% fall during that time period. But for now, playing it the way that I see it, which is still bullish. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of markets and the unemployment data. Did you expect it to be so bullish? And what are you looking for over the next 2 to 3 weeks into the new year? Are we going to stay Santa Claus rally style grind higher, or will we see a bigger sell-off into the new year? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.